Now, for a review of what's making the headlines in the papers this morning, let's bring in Arise analyst, Constance Ikwoku. Good morning, Dr. Constance.
A very good morning to you, Yolanda.
Yes, it's good to see you.
It's good to see you. It's good. It's Friday.
Absolutely.
Looking forward to a good weekend.
Definitely.
Yes, and Nkechi, the lady in red. Good morning.
Good morning, Dr. Ikwoku. How are you doing?
I am doing well, and you?
Great.
Okay, good to see both of you. To look at the papers with us today, we have Dr. Austin Maho. He is a lecturer at the International Institute of Journalism in Abuja. Excuse me. Hello there and welcome to the program. We'll begin with This Day. In This Day today, we'll take a story that's in the inside page, which says, in first move toward openness, Ojulari-led NNPC releases company's operational data for April. Then similarly in the Guardian newspaper, if we can pull that up, it says NNPC remits 4.7 trillion naira as oil revenue shortfall hits $5.7 billion. The bio-jewelry leadership of the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited was appointed in April, we remember, and it seems to be moving towards transparent operations, at least for now. Bayo and his team were given a $60 billion target investment by 2030, oil production goal of 2 million barrels per day by 2027, and 3 million by 2030. Very steep goals and matching orders from the president to Mr. Ojulari and his team. They will have to work hard, first of all, to change that negative perception of the NNPCL, and this include issues such as delayed audits, transparency in revenue reporting, crude oil sales, contract awards, and public access to financial data. It's a long road to transformation, isn't it, Dr. Maho?
Very long way, because the NNPC over the years has been seen rather as an opaque organization that operates in secrecy. You know, the books of the NNPC for several years was not made open to the public. So, in fact, when you look at the role of the NNPC in the Nigeria economy, it is like the goose that lays the golden egg. And for such, you know, an important organization to have operated in secrecy, and many of them described it as, you know, the cash cow of those who wanted to dip their hands in the till of government, it was worrisome, especially again over the years since this democratic era, starting with President Olusegun Obasanjo in 1999. The president down the line have always, you know, appropriated that position of Minister of Petroleum, which further complicated, you know, the operation of the NNPC. But hopefully, we know President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is still the Minister of Petroleum Resources, but hopefully we do hope that the Ojulari-led administration will be given the free hand to operate. And in the days ahead, you know, with this signal from him in releasing his operational report for April, it now behove on all to hold him accountable, you know, as the media and the people of Nigeria, to make sure the right thing is done. NNPC, which is the goose that lays the golden egg for the Nigeria economy, cannot be allowed to operate in opacity.
Right.
Before you continue, when you were talking about the story, you said they've now released some of their numbers for Nigerians to see, and you said for now. And I think that's the sentiment of most Nigerians, because we want to see this continue. We want to see the consistency. It's a welcome development, even though the report says, look, this is an internal audit. It's not like it's independent. It's their own numbers that they're sharing with Nigerians. But I think the new leadership in NNPC will now focus on getting that $60 billion mandate. And they have to show the world that, look, we're transparent. Yes. You can keep us accountable, and we're getting results as well.
Yeah, good start, but we all know it is a drop in the ocean.
Yeah.
and like you said, if your books are not open, it limits you know, involvement or people that want to get involved in your company. So Mr. Ojulari, you know, lots of work for him to do. Okay, let's move on to Daily Independent. There, don't blame defections or defectors jumping off a sinking ship. This is Tinubu speaking. President Tinubu says one party stayed not in the offing, mocks opposition, tells them to put their house in order, confers national honors on Kudirat Abiola, Professor Humphrey Nwosu, and others. In fact, when we go back to this day in newspaper, we see that the president was reported as being delighted that the opposition is in shambles. All these were said at this Democracy Day speech at the National Assembly. Dr. Maho, what's your sense of how that speech went? Was it consequential, or how consequential was it? You know, there were various aspects of the speech touching on our national lives. You know, there were the national honors, there was the political statements, and of course the economic promises. Your take on it?
You know, everybody have praised the speech, that it was a good speech, one of the best speeches, you know, ever delivered by Mr. President. And in my take, jokingly, I said, if species were horses, beggars will ride, or Nigerians will ride. Yes. Speeches are just speeches. But it's the end result that matters. It's what the average Nigerian out there is feeling, not, you know, making motivational speeches that has no impact whatsoever on the daily lives of the average Nigerian. Well spoken, but at the end of the day, we expect Mr. President to follow up his words with action. Many of those who complained about, you know, the way our democracy is going yesterday, especially somebody that, like Senator Dixon, he made the reference that, look, in Nigeria today, there's a drift towards, you know, a one-party state. And of course, there is the, you know, the problem in Rivers State, which many people have described as being against the norm of democracy. So we expect that, Mr. President, live by your word. We commend the speech you made yesterday, and you've done 2 years of democracy. You need to expand the civic space. Let Nigerians breathe in accordance with their democratic rights. Because when you are in a democracy and you cannot freely exercise your democratic right, it's no longer a democracy. And that's what many people feel, especially since APC has become like a vortex that is magneting all political interests in such a way that we now feel that we are drifting towards totalitarianism and a one-party state.
Yeah, Yolanda, I don't know if you watched the speech, but excuse me. When the president was talking about, you know, other parties being in disarray, it was well that he received a standing ovation and massive applause, and you would think that it was something for sober reflection rather than excitement, you know?
Very true, but then again, we're speaking about the president, so it would be quite unusual for him to come to the National Assembly and make such a prominent speech and not to get a standing ovation. That would indeed be strange. That would be the news. So I think, you know, him speaking and cheering on and saying that, look, as you said, that's what I noticed as well, that he was quite excited to note the high number of defections. And at the end of the day, I mean, it is his party, so he would have to show that level of excitement. But as the president, I'm sure he'd have to also, you know, be a bit diplomatic about it, because for sure the opposition is not having it easy at the moment.
And of course, eventually Professor Humphrey Nwosu, who, you know, everyone was saying needed to be honored, was posthumously honored, among others as well. Okay, let's see Daily Sound. Labour set for fresh debate, or rather battle, over minimum wage, consequential adjustments, meets FG. Labour members said this while attending the 113th International Labour Conference in Geneva, Switzerland. Labour spoke of states, agencies struggling in consequential adjustment of wages and the impact of inflation. Some workers have not even started enjoying the negotiated minimum wage.
Yes.
Some are still receiving 30,000 naira as their take-home pay. Nkechi, I mean, Labour has every right to push for fresh meetings here. You know, if wages are agreed, then they should be paid.
Yes, and I think Labour needs to even push harder, because what's the point of announcing that 70,000 naira minimum wage if workers are still going to go home with 30,000 naira? These are workers that were promised this relief last year. It's now almost a year and we're still waiting. What does this say about our system? What does this say about implementing policies, when you make announcements, you have to follow up. And I think us in the media too, we also have to follow up. We read so many stories, we go on so many reports where they sign MOUs, where they big promises, and we need to follow up on those promises. This is why the Labour Union is now saying, look, now they even want to negotiate, because I think the review period is 5 years, and now they even want it to be
2 years. No, I think it was changed. Was it not 2 years?
I think it was now changed to 5 years, and now they want it to be 3 years or 2 years. We'll have that, we'll check that out later. So I think, yes, the Labour Union is absolutely in its right to speak up about this. These are Nigerian workers. These are people that are keeping the country moving day to day, and so they deserve to be paid well.
All right. A new Telegraph this morning, TIAI, too much political interference and making anti-graft war difficult. Transparency International and Amnesty International say weak institutions have led to less successes by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission and the Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Commission. They also say that asset recovery by the Code of Conduct Bureau is becoming impossible. Excuse me. Another NGO noted that the National Assembly are the ones who make laws, but appear not to be in the campaign against corruption, at least openly. Dr. Maho, damning verdict all round, just a day after Democracy Day. And the point about the National Assembly, sadly, it's true. A lot of people will agree on that.
Yeah, we as a country, we need to pay attention to the issue of corruption in our country. You know, there's this quotable quote by former President Muhammadu Buhari that if Nigeria doesn't kill corruption, corruption will kill Nigeria. I think the issue of corruption is fundamental if we need to grow as a country. Unfortunately, I have said this somewhere else. You know, I've done an analysis of President Bola Ahmed's speeches since, you know, May 2023 when he came into power. He hardly talks about corruption. No. You know, just go and look at his speeches. He doesn't talk about corruption. Whereas the previous administration, irrespective of its failing, it made the issue of corruption a major agenda of its administration. Talking about it, at least, it gives the impression that the government is willing to do something about it. And corruption, you know, is one of, when you look at the failure in government, corruption is one of the issues you trace it to. If government policies are not transparent, they are not open, they are not implemented with sincerity of purpose, but rather everything is based on corruption by those in power, you know, the implementation becomes a problem. And that is why government, this report is a wake-up call. I see it's actually for government to equally pay attention to the issue of corruption. Look at the speech delivered by Mr. President to the joint sitting of the National Assembly yesterday. Was there any place where he mentioned the issue of corruption?
No. Well, I mean, his supporters will say to his defense, he didn't run on that during the campaigns, as opposed to President Muhammad Buhari, who ran on that and then failed woefully in actually tackling corruption when he came into office. Anyway, in the interest of time, let's move on to the Guardian newspaper. Varsities must score 70% in 4 key areas for full NUC accreditation, says the federal government. This include academic matters, staffing, physical facilities, and library. A statement from the NUC says the process is rigorous to ensure universities uphold high academic standards. The NUC continued with praising itself by saying its regulatory regime is one of the most quality or high quality assurance ecosystems in Africa. It says there's no perfect accreditation system anywhere in the world, but determined to deepen the culture of quality assurance. Nkechi, I heard you laughing, but Nkechi or Yolanda, you can come in there. If the process is rigorous, I wonder why we have so many private universities looking like secondary schools in today's Nigeria.
Very well said. That was my thought as well. You know, you're calling for quality assurance, but look at the standards of the facilities, the infrastructure. It's very poor. I think we had a report maybe a week or two ago where we were speaking about them installing full-time internet on some of the campuses. And as it sounded great for some, for the majority of them, that's not even a reality. If you look at the boarding spaces for these students as well, they are so dilapidated and in poor condition. So how then do you expect the output of these students to be top-notch when the environment is not even friendly or conducive for that?
Well, more to do on that front. Let's see Leadership newspaper. Here, there's one story at the top, the Democracy Day. Tinubu confers national honors on Kudirat Abiola Nwosu Yar'Adua. Others, then on to the Vanguard newspaper. I don't view one-party state as good for Nigeria, according to the president. Also, Tinubu celebrates Vanguard publisher Sam Amuka at 90. Wow, he's 90 already. Wow, you know, I mean, he was also conferred on national honor. And I mean, he has played a very huge role in the media industry in Nigeria. Then IBB apologized to us for Abiola's annulment of the June 12 election. Then let's see international papers. Daily Graphic, Ministry gives a 30-day ultimatum. 62 radio stations shut down over regulatory violations, having been given this number of days to rectify breaches or risk licenses revoked. Citizen newspaper, try the beloved country. It's all about sports in Citizen today. Rugby championship with SA facing off with Ireland. Good luck to both teams. And then into another story. In a major provocation, Israel has targeted Iran's nuclear sites and military commanders in an attack overnight. There are footages of explosions in Tehran, buildings ablaze. Israel fired 100 drones in what it called Operation Rising Lion, saying Iran is a threat to Israel's survival. Iran says civilians were killed, including children, and has responded by firing 100 drones toward Israel. I mean, an escalation in this region is what no one wants to see, but it's hard to see stability in a region where Israel and its Arab neighbors live in perpetual suspicion of one another. Anyone can jump in here.
This war is quite devastating in that many people tend to forget what war does to nations. It has very devastating generational effects, and to see that lots of women and children and vulnerable adults are affected is so scary, especially in this day and age of nuclear weapons. I apologize, Dr. Austin, I think you were trying to say something.
Dr. Maho,
yes. I wanted to say that we all woke up this morning and discovered that the Israeli military have not only set the Middle East on fire, the entire world, because this, what is happening currently has the capacity to draw the entire world into a conflict that we don't know where it's going to lead to, or we know it began overnight, but we don't know how it is going to end. You know, Iran is a major power in the Middle East, whether you like it or not. And from what, you know, it's a developing story. We are still following up the story, but from the report we've heard so far about the devastating effect of the over 200 sorties the Israeli military carried out overnight in Iran, leading to the death of key military officers of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, and of course the destruction of its nuclear enrichment facilities and military facilities all across Tehran. I don't think Tehran is going to sit down and take what has happened to them just like that. The response has started with about 100 drones
Okay.
are allegedly fired into Israel. And I think it's just the beginning.
Yeah.
It's not good for the world. We seek for peace. But it is obvious that a lot of Western powers are behind Israel in what it has done.
Let's look at the Daily Star, miracle of seat 11A. A British national of Indian origin, the only survivor of that Air India crash yesterday. 260 people dead, both from the plane that crashed and on the ground where the plane crashed. Such a tragic accident. A Boeing 787-8 Dreamliner heading to Gatwick Airport, London. And it's been reported, or some have reported that it was up to 290 people are dead. And then finally, to the U.S., the continuing coverage of the L.A. protests, a U.S. district judge has blocked President Trump from deploying the National Guard, saying the move is illegal. I mean, what we are seeing is a test of the limits of the powers between the federal and the state in a country where true federalism is practiced, isn't it?
Yeah, you're right. I think this is just a matter of who controls, in this case, the National Guard in a democratic federation like the United States. And I think that's what the judge was saying, that Donald Trump was stepping away from or into a jurisdiction that's typically reserved for the state. And I think we've seen this a lot with Donald Trump's second term. So many of his pronouncements, so many of his executive orders, so many of his policies are being tried in court, and the court always comes back to say, look, you might be overstepping. So we're seeing that. I think he's pushing the limits in this second term.
On that note, we have to wrap it up. Dr. Austin Maho, lecturer at the International Institute of Journalism in Abuja. Thank you for coming this morning.
And Dr. Constance Igu, we invited another doctor yet again. When Yolanda and I don't have our doctorate degree yet.
What do you?
Well, thank you so much for joining us. And thank God it's Friday. I hope you enjoy your weekend.
That's right.
That's all the time we have for you here on Daybreak. I am Nkechi Nana.
And I'm Yolanda Robert. Please do keep it here on Arise News. The morning show is next. Goodbye.